on the phone again now. For some reason, the PC isn't really happy anymore with this whole going live. So what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to talk about, as I mentioned to you, I am launching a new course this week. So as lots of you already know, I had two existing courses. One is Flips Assisted Sales by Refurbish Refinance. So obviously it's focused on getting in and getting out of deals. Power teams, you don't necessarily, I suppose your go mine area isn't as important because of the fact that you will be selling off the flips and assisted sales. And I also have a deal packaging course, but now I've written a course and written audio and all the supporting documents. So this course is building a portfolio with minimum money down. So this topic is interesting in Ireland because an awful lot of the people who contact me say have read books from the UK. Some of them have even done UK training already, and they actually assume they know how to do this already. So they tell me they'll be buying places local to them for convenience, which, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Then they'll be refinancing, they'll be getting their own money back out, and then they'll be buying something else. And I'd say at least twice a week, somebody 20 years younger than me tells me several things that you cannot do. So I suppose that is also people that ask me all the time about building a portfolio. So that's what put me, even though I'm not adding to my own things at the moment, it made me realise that lots of people would like to have a portfolio. They'd like to have that, I don't call it passive income, there's some work with everything, but that's semi-passive income. So I suppose to give people some insight, I'm going to maybe go in the same order that this course goes in over the course of the lives this week. So this is a very long course and some sections are more suitable for plucking pieces off than others, I suppose. So the first one is why build a portfolio in Ireland and what are realistic expectations. So lots and lots of people wouldn't just have a very general idea of this when they make contact first. They'd actually know there seems to be money in property, but there would be a long way from having a rate chart about what type of money you'd make on the different strategies. So I suppose what kind of returns are you likely to make? So obviously this is about building a portfolio. We do cover flips and assisted sales and everything because it's a great way to make deposits, to pay deposits on the things you want to hold on to. But in terms of actual portfolio, I suppose we're at nearly 10% rent a lot of places in Ireland now. Yields in Dublin are actually probably lower than some other parts of Ireland, but everyone assumes because Dublin is the capital and because prices are high that it's the place to be. And they're not often the highest yields at all because the prices are so high. There's other places, and also obviously there's high competition from experienced landlords in Dublin. But I would say that you probably are going to be able to achieve kind of 9% upwards on rents, even on a single let. You will even find areas that you can rent to the council on the 15-20 year lease, so they take away all of the hassle. And even having deducted your 20%, you're still at 8 or 9% rent. So there is really, really good returns on rents all over Ireland, we would say at the moment. So what other strategies are there that might even make you more money? So HMOs or co-livings, as we tend to call them in Ireland, are places that you rent out the rooms one by one and you include the bills. So the real money in HMOs, if you just buy a 3-bed house and you rent it out, the 3 rooms separately, you're not going to make much more money than if you rented it as a 3-bed, because psychologically the people know, well, that's 3 and you multiply 500 quid a room by 3 and they're not expecting to pay much more than 1,500. Where you create the margin in HMOs is you're bringing the rooms to a higher standard than other houses in the area, but you're also maybe turning a 3-bed into a 5 or 6-bed. So that's where you're creating the margin. So, and also including all the bills, people will definitely pay extra for convenience. Do you ever see bundles in a shop, or when you see 2 for 3, or you see a gift pack, say in a nice shop, and you see a gift box? people don't even multiply. They just seem to assume if they buy a few things together that it's cheaper. It's often not cheaper, because say with the gift box example, almost invariably they've swapped out smaller sizes of things, so it's not actually cheaper. But convenience appeals to people. I mean, you only have to look in supermarkets now. I'd say their fastest growing thing is prepared meals. So people don't want frozen food. They don't want to buy takeaway because they feel guilty about that. If someone else peels the vegetables and it's in a tray ready to go in the oven, they're happy enough with that. That seems to be the sweet spot for grocery, prepared meals, chilled meals type of stuff. So that's how HMOs work. You upgrade them a bit, add in the bills, high speed, Wi-Fi. Obviously you put juicy names on all of the facilities you have. It sounds really convenient. It's one set price per month, which people will pay more than if you added it all together. But the real profit is in turning a 3 into a 5 or a 6. Now obviously there's more voids in them, because if one person moves out you have to fill them room by room. But this is to give you an idea. Serviced accommodation would have been very, very lucrative, but I would hardly even call it a property strategy. I mean, it's a whole business. It's busy, serviced accommodation. So your Airbnb, your Booking.coms, anyone who's able to steer them towards corporate does well out of this, because they're longer bookings, not as much cleaning. Your costs are way higher because there's all the cleaning, laundry and all of that type of stuff. So I would say some of the highest earning landlords I know in Ireland, they're doing student HMOs in the winter, and then they're doing Airbnb in the summer. So if you're in a touristy town, that's definitely a really, really good combination. What other strategies have we? Obviously, flips, assisted sales. Flips, I will often say my target profit on a flip would be about 25,000 after all the costs are paid. Not really negotiable about going lower than that, because you may think, oh, well, I'd be okay with 15. Now 15,000 is loads of money. She's a bit greedy there. If your target is 25, you might only end up with 15. Our comparables in Ireland are not as strong as the UK. We don't have Rightmove with all that historical information. We've the property price register, but remember that you don't have a house. You'll have a house number if it's in an estate. If it's on a private road in Ireland, they don't have a number. It could be a 3-bed, a 4-bed, a 5-bed. Same in estates. You'll have a difficulty assessing what size the sold house was, unless you happen to be saving the details of all the ads as they go by. So our historical information, our comparables are not as strong, so you need a margin of error. So when I say 25 minimum, don't think I'll be okay at 15. I'm not as fussy as she is. If you get it wrong and you're at 15, you'll end up doing them for nothing, and you'll still have to pay your investor their percentage of the profits. So what are realistic expectations? That's HMOs, single lets, and serviced accommodation. And we've mentioned the council, which is a reduced form of a single let. Other combinations, as I said, one of the very strong ones is student HMOs coupled with summer lets. Flips, assisted sales. So if a flip is a target of 25 grand, you might have a target of 13,000 on an assisted sale, because you're going to have less money down and more commitment. In fact, I would do assisted sales all day long for 10,000 euro, because you could have a couple of them going at the one time. And there's less delays, you're not taking ownership of the property, etc. So part 1 of this course goes through what are the typical returns on the different strategies. Just want to open a slide here now to chat to you about. One whole section is called what you might not have known about mortgages. This is something that's really, really relevant to people who are in Ireland, because these are the parts that people get wrong all of the time. So net profit, tax implication, what you might not know about mortgages. So these are very, very important points. So the 70 or 80%, when you hear the words, you can borrow 70. So 70% most investment banks are at, but your own local AIB, BOI might tell you they'll go to 80%. People get all excited and they tell me, oh, I found something below market value and I'll be able to borrow 8% of the value of it. No, you won't. We use the word value loosely. It's 70 or 80% of the lower of the purchase price or the value in Ireland. And that's actually sitting at probably 50% at the moment due to the coronavirus. So you can't just beg a bargain and think that you'll not put no money down. That's not going to happen in Ireland. That's possible in the UK. It's possible in Scotland through refinances. It's not going to happen in Ireland. There's a long, more convoluted way to handle that, which obviously the people who are doing the course will find out. Second point an awful lot of people don't realise about mortgages is no one will lend on an uninhabitable house. So all these houses that you see on lots of the advertisements, in absolute tatters, you're not going to be getting a mortgage on them. You actually won't be able to get those in Ireland at all. So now we're at the lower purchase price or the value, no uninhabitables, which is a big eye-opener for people, because an awful lot of younger people come to me with strategies they devise based on based on training probably from the UK or the US. There's a lot of books out of the US, obviously, if you go on Amazon. And they want to buy really rundown houses, but that's out if you intend to lend. Number 3, mortgages are not for flips. So we've only about 4 lenders in Ireland for buy-to-lets at the moment, 4 or 5 lenders, I suppose. So mortgages are not meant for flips. They cost money to register a mortgage. The bank goes through a big assessment process with you. They don't intend you to pay off that mortgage again in 3 months' time after all the hassle they've gone to. So you might pull a fast one once on a bank, but you won't. They'll have you on their system the next time. So that's another misconception. People just assume that they're going to flip property, but they're actually going to do it with mortgages. They're not, and they're in Ireland, and they're going to hit the uninhabitable problem as well, probably, with some of the more scruffy stuff, which they'll be flipping. We've only one interest-only product in Ireland as of 2020, which is ICS, and you have to have a minimum salary of 40,000 to apply for that. So you can forget the notion of packing in your job, getting some rent to rents, and then getting, building up a portfolio without having a salary. At this minute, that minimum 40,000 salary is actually increased to 65 grand salary, and they're gone to 50% loan to value in light of the crisis. The other big thing is you have to have your own home. So where a lot of people are prioritising getting on the investment ladder to buying their own home, they're maybe happy enough renting. They're not so fussed. That's not your decision in a way. If you want an interest-only mortgage, you've got to have a home first. The reason being they don't want you to move into the one that you said you'd buy as an investment property and then say, actually, we're going to live here instead. This is our home. And then if it's your home, you have all sorts of legal protections. So ICS insist you have your own home in order for them to do a buy-to-let mortgages. Fifth thing is it, they only lend in some towns and cities, so there's all criteria for where you can operate now. So minimum populations apply. Before you spend a load of time sussing out a gold mine area and chatting to in the town that you're in. And my last point is a good news. Most of those are things that people probably assume or believe but aren't true. The last point is to remind you about the rent-a-room allowance, which is 14,000 for someone living in a house, buying a house and living in it. First 14,000 they take in rent, so if they rented 2 spare rooms, is tax-free. An absolutely brilliant way. That's what anybody who doesn't have a home yet should be doing, is availing of that, getting on the ladder. So that gives you a flavour, guys, of what this building a portfolio course is all about. So it starts with what is it possible to earn, what you might not know about mortgages, which I think that's one of the best slides in the whole first section, because 90% of people who approach me already have read up somewhat on this, but it's always UK or US based. how much property you'd need to live off a property portfolio, how much work is involved in running a portfolio, what to buy and what not to buy, so that's house types and all of that, and minimising management and maximising returns. So how you get the work down to the minimum while getting the rents up to the maximum. So that is section 1 of why build a portfolio in Ireland and what are realistic expectations. So as I said, that forms part of a larger course, which actually has 10 modules, 120 slides, 75 audio files, called Building a Portfolio with Minimum Money Down. I hear the phrase constantly, no money down. I don't believe there is such a thing. Yes, you can end up with no money down after a while, but you won't end up just putting no money into deals in the beginning. So the second section, we'll actually have a run through the second section. I'm just looking, we're only 15 minutes on yet, so that's okay. So how do you build a property with little or no money down is the second section. So it goes through how people traditionally finance property purchases, how we finance them in order to create this very low money down situation. We covered the differences between owning and controlling property. So what do we mean by that? We mean things like lease options, maybe a rent to rent with a lease option, all of those type of things. So ways that you can control property through options is in a nutshell is the main way you can control property without owning it. How bridging finance and equity release work in the UK and how we need to work around that. We don't have bridging finance or equity release anymore in Ireland. And basically that really is the main reason that people who complete training in the UK or the US struggle when they try and apply it here, because it's all based around the premise of bridging finance and equity release. We don't have either of them here, so we have devised a separate model to get around that. Using investor finance to pay deposits. So we talk about what investors want and how you could possibly use other people's money to pay deposits, what profit they'll expect out of that, what cautions you have to take, what precautions they have to take, and what solicitor will cost you to look over these agreements, etc. Then we look at the buy, refurb, refinance model, because I suppose buy, refurb, refinance is the hub of how you'll create a portfolio with no money down. But it's not really buy, refurbish, refinance in Ireland. It's buy, refurbish, finance, I would say. You're not going to be refinancing things with a new bank 6 months after you just finished them in Ireland. We talk about creating equity and adding value and what kind of value you could expect to add. The next section, buying below market value. Why would anyone sell below market value? Again, no more than no money down. It's not a term I particularly like, because I often believe that these houses in the condition they're in, that is the market value. It's not below market value. It's just not appealing to anybody. They have no other offer. So is that not then the market value? I prefer to look at things as what can I add value to? Because you could talk all day about below market value and these big captions. I got this 25% below market value. And you think, well, it was for sale for a year and nobody else had bid on it, So I would focus more on what can I add value, where can I create equity, as opposed to obsessing about buying things below market value. So that's modules 1 and 2. We'll have a look at 3 and 4 tomorrow. So building a portfolio in Ireland, what are realistic expectations and the misassumptions? I think the misassumptions about mortgages are really, really important. And the most important thing probably in module 2, looking at the no money down, low money down model, is bridging. How do you cope in the absence of bridging finance and equity release? What will investors do? What will investors not do? I suppose I see big difference. Some of my contacts are some people on here probably even operating in the UK, some of them in Scotland, and we all just have different experiences with investors. They're different depending on their background, but they're also different nationality to nationality. We may not seem that different to the English or the Scots to ye, I find we're quite different when you're looking for money off us. An awful lot of Irish people have had some brush with property in the last 20 years. And there's actually a lot of people who know a lot of stuff. It's nearly harder to find investors that don't know anything and are just waiting for you to tell them what the situation is. And not most people will have experience, and they'll have preconceptions whether they're correct or incorrect. So our investor finance needs to be specific to Ireland, I suppose. And then creating equity. So that's sections 1 and 2. As I mentioned, there's 3. It's the longest course so far. There was 5 places at a discount. 2 of those are gone, I believe. Well, one girl is signed up and started already. Someone else collected the coupon for the other one, but if they don't use it, it will actually expire anyway. So pop me a private message, even if you're not ready to book, but you think this may be something of interest to you. The goal for this course really is that you're going to be able to build a property portfolio 3 to 5 times faster than if you didn't follow these steps. Because saving for one deposit and then saving for another one is just too slow. And you need to be up live and ready to do this by the time prices start to slip a bit in the next. Well, I think it could be next year by the time we actually see prices sliding much, because property doesn't react the way shares react. It's much slower burner. But you need to be up ready to go and have yourself all set up before any of that happens. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys, and pop me any questions. And as I say, you can register your interest, no problem at all, without registering. I know some of you have strategy calls booked later in the week, some tomorrow. That's absolutely fine. I just want to make sure that the people who've been following this the longest are the people who get the coupon. There's 5 coupons with 16% off. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Pop me a private message, anything at all, and pop me, or if you need the link to book a chat. You're very welcome, Michael. Thanks very much, guys, and I will see you at the same time tomorrow to have a look at modules 3 and 4. So module 3 is creating cash flow without owning the properties, and module 4 is earning lump sums to finance your deposits. So we'll have a look at those tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Bye.